Hey everybody, welcome to Built in Public, the real stories of the people shaping the builder economy. I'm your host, Adam Perlis, founder of B150, and on this show, we talk to creators building in the open, from vibe coders to designers to filmmakers, marketers, musicians, and more. Whether it's a tool, a product, a piece of art, these are builders leveraging Gen AI to turn ideas into things that we actually use, love, and talk about. Today, I'm joined by Filip Skrzesinski. He's one of the co-founders of Subframe, a product design tool that's reshaping the way designers and developers are working together. We'll talk about what they're working on, why they started it, and go deep on how this tool actually works. This is Built in Public. Let's get into it. Welcome, Philip.
Hey, Adam. Great to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Philip. So just to kind of like kick things off, I'd love to hear a little bit of the founder's story. Like, how did you come up with the idea of Subframe with your partner? And and then tell us a little bit about what the product actually is.
Yeah, no, great. So story of Subframe really starts with my co-founder, Urban. You got to meet him. We were hanging out right at Config earlier this year. And he's one of those front-end engineers that probably could have been a designer, but ended up going deep into front-end instead. The real story actually starts with Figma, funny enough. So both my co-founders worked at Coda before this, and Coda was actually Figma's first customer. So that was super early days, almost 10 years ago now. And so Irvin got to play with the first version of Figma. And especially back then, he was basically like, dude, I can't work with this, right? Like it's not there. So he basically decided like it's faster for me to just design and code, because he had that designer's mind, and so that's what he did. And along the way, started going into tooling to really see, well, if I'm designing in code, why don't we have a visual sort of interface design tool that's just built on top of code? So fast forward a few years, he started working on this as a solo founder, and then about a year-ish into that journey, we met through a co-founder, or through a coworker. I was ready to do something new. I kind of jumped ship. That's one of those things where like you always have that itch, and I finally took the plunge, left my last startup I was at for like 4+ years, and really wanted to do something new. So I was about to go into the idea maze, and always, my background is computer science and art. Design kind of fell in the middle. I worked everything from design systems to, pure product growth design, and always got into the code a little bit. So I always knew there was something that bridged this creative and technical space, especially with design. And really, I was going to jump into the idea maze myself, but we met and started working together. I saw the kind of first very early versions of Subframe that Irvin had built, and I was like, this is it, this is all in. I can't believe I met someone else who, if we like locked each other, we're in a room separately, like we'd come up thinking about the same things, and here we were. So it was pretty quick to go in full time. Around the same time, joined our co-founder Adam, and that's kind of been the last year and a half has been just the three of us. We're still the founding team, bringing this to market and bringing AI into it, and now expanding into design.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit about like what is Subframe? How does it fit into a designer's workflow today?
Yeah, so Subframe, it is a design tool. We are a visual builder. I actually think that's kind of the term WYSIWYG. It's almost like fallen out of fashion. Like it makes you think of like Adobe 90s Dreamweaver type interfaces, but it's kind of gone full circle where, at the end of the day, we've gone through this sort of journey of like, we used to design directly in the browser, right? Whether email still was like this until very recently, where you made tables, right? To everything was old school HTML and CSS. And that's really how these like designer developers on the web started. Then we started abstracting it out, right? We realized, similar to maybe an architect analogy, right? Like you can't build everything all at once. You want to map out what you're designing. So, we started with pixel tools like Photoshop, right? To mock up interfaces that basically serve as blueprints for what an engineer should build. Then we moved into vector tools, right? Sketch came along. Um, Figma came along after that, still very much vector world. And then that's kind of where we plateaued as designers, right? We said, hey, our work is this tool where we design mockups and we hand those things off for them to get built. And I think few things happened recently, right? Which was that AI has really accelerated how accessible building is in code directly. It's also made an infinite, imagination possible, where you really can build anything, think of anything, try these things out. And so that's where these kind of things have gone full circle. We're building software and code is the material, but designers, it's less about we're forced to work just making pictures. If now we can build as fast, if you were an architect and you had like this magic laser beam, you could point at anything and just be like, here's a wall, right? You were kind of like Sims style, like building a house like at the lot, you wouldn't be making all those blueprints, right? And that's kind of where
Right.
designers are today, where we have this magic laser beam. Software is digital, software is incredibly malleable. um, why can't we just build with it? And that's really where the core of Subframe started, which was, let's have that WYSIWYG editor where designers are not about making blueprints, they're just about thinking visually and building visually, right? Whether it's you're
Mhm.
just mapping things out, whether you're drilling in and just looking at those border radiuses, peeping those pixels, the things that we really care about, the things that make an interface, look and feel a certain way. Well, we could do that just with code. And so
Mhm.
Subframe is a design tool, a WYSIWYG editor for working directly with React code components, where all those buttons you drag around, everything you design is already converted into code in that same.
Got it. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think for a long time we've been stuck in that world where, yeah, it feels a bit 2D, and we always have to rely on a developer to go and execute our work. I mean, one of the challenges I think we've seen with Figma is that it's been, very much locked in that kind of world. I know that they've developed tools like Figma Make. I guess like how does Subframe differentiate like and like or maybe how do they play together?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, I'll be honest, which is that a lot of people who start using Subframe do then start and end in Subframe, right? In terms of their product design process. I still think there's a place for tools like Figma, as it's like the best, infinite digital canvas whiteboard that you could basically just, without constraints, be able to put stuff on a canvas and ideate, move things around, make it messy. It's kind of like a pen and paper digital equivalent for me. But when you move into that phase of like, I'm actually building the interface, all that time that goes into the exact padding that you're using, the exact spacing that you're using, the exact placement and states of every single thing, you're really building, right? You kind of, that there's that switch that flips in your head in that design process, and you're spending hours putting together these final mockups. There's no reason to do that just for an engineer to take that. And again, like, we expect people who specifically chose to be engineers, not designers, to act as wizards, right? It's like, I don't know design. You're giving me a picture and I'm supposed to like write code without any
Right.
visuals to exactly reproduce what you want me to make, right? Like
Right.
that bar is way too high. We're putting way too much, pressure on that, and especially developers, even sometimes front developers, right? They don't want to be writing CSS and Tailwind CSS, right? Like you already did that as a designer.
Right.
So that's really where we see, that building phase. And for, to be honest too, right now, we really are optimized for that. We don't have an infinite canvas yet. It's something we're thinking on because as people
Yeah.
do move onto the platform, design is messy. And that first
Yeah.
60% of it is just, I need to try out a bunch of things off to the side. I need to move things over here. I need to explore and diverge. And so, I think right now we're more on that converging phase, but with AI and entire design workflows coming into Subframe, we're going to be looking into that full end-to-end process as well.
Yeah, I think that's the part that's super interesting to me. I think we've all been there, pixel pushing literally, nudging something over just like 1 or 2 pixels just to make sure it's aligned perfectly or that there's the right padding or the right rounded corners. And then you're in the flow and you just keep building, building, building. And then you have to go back and like change everything again because you didn't set it up in a proper design system to begin with, and you're just like the amount of work to get like even just like auto layout, for example, working, or now their new like grids tool, which I think is really bad so far in Figma. Like it's just so much extra work. And I think designers need to like reframe a little bit. I think this is what you're saying, like the mindset of how they start building from the very beginning, so that you're immediately thinking about design systems from the get-go and how all of that kind of ties together. Of course, like I can see where, maybe riffing in a place like Figma makes a lot of sense. But, I think if you start to, maybe implement some of those features to allow people to play a little bit more exploratory stuff and then go into more of a design systems focused approach, which I think you guys are really, honing in on. That's very interesting. I think it makes sense. Like, I would love to dive into the tool a little bit with you because we're obviously talking about it in like a little bit of a metaphoric way. But it would be great to kind of like actually show people what we're talking about here.
Yeah, let's do it. And I have a very special project for you, Adam. I think you might recognize it when you see it.
Okay, now you got me really curious. Tell me more.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Okay, so yeah, we're here in your B150 project. And of course, we're multiplayer collaboratives, so you could jump in here as well. But if I
Okay.
open up this here, let's go to our feed, right? Here's your project. And then if I open up Subframe, here, it's kind of hard for me to tell the difference right now. I don't know about you. It's
Yeah,
pretty
no, I
close.
mean they are very, very close. I mean, a few small things like iconography, and type settings, but yeah, I mean, structurally and look and feel, it's pretty much there. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's jam a little bit on B150, but first I'll this is a very common thing. The reason this isn't exact is because, I kind of rebuilt it from what you already have. And a lot of
Mm.
people, come into Subframe, there's a huge part that's really 0 to 1, and we're really amazing at that because one of the things you get is you get an entire design system out of the box. This is kind of like our version of ShatCN where you got all your primitives here that you might expect. You look at something like a button, and this is a real React button. So you kind of get like your own personal storybook out of the box with real components. And the difference, though, is you can always go into edit mode. And now this looks
Mm.
probably really familiar to a designer where you have all your buttons, all your states, If you wanted to not make your buttons circular anymore, you could do that here. And
Wow.
we have just updated the React component, not just in Subframe, but the one that will be used in code and actually synced with your design system, because this is your design system. So a lot of people start here from, from the get-go, because you have all this pre-built. You could just quickly theme and customize it. You got your colors, you got your fonts. But a lot of people also start with something, right? You might have an existing design system, or maybe you don't have a design system. That's actually a really common use case we're hearing, is you might have that first version, or you might have an old system, you're trying to rebuild it. Subframe is a great place to bring in a lot of your existing foundations and then use it to, going forward, act as the source of truth for your design system components and where you do your design work.
And
So
just out of curiosity on that theme, like, can you bring in, like, let's say a Figma file or even project, and it will help you generate that, or no?
yeah, so right now we have, it's a still bit of a manual process. Everyone's Figma files are completely a mess, and even people's
Yeah.
React design system components can be all built very differently. So we
Hmm.
do a couple things right now. One is, if you're a mature company that has a real proper design system, all documented, someone maintaining it, we can actually bring in your components directly from code, so that you don't have to rebuild any of this. It's all everything that's in your storybook already, and you
Hmm.
can design with it just like
Okay.
you would. For this, I think right now we're trying to build just like more and more tooling to help people bring in existing things faster. So the way I did this, for example, for your colors, is actually, I went in here, and I think because I don't have your Figma file, right?
Hmm.
I didn't have
Yeah,
any
I
of
didn't
it,
give you anything. Yep.
and I just inspected some of these colors here, right? So I think you can, just go in, and I don't think those are, there we go, color border, right? So you got a bunch of your colors and your fonts, your theme defined here. And
Mm.
I could just take some of these, right? I could just copy this. And if we go into Subframe, like, we just shipped this little import tool where you could just drop
Ah,
CSS variables
that's
in
cool.
here. I might just change these names because I think I already imported them. We'll just call it two, right?
Yep.
And boom, your colors are in here now, right? So you could do the same thing for your palettes. Fonts, text styles, those are pretty easy. But yeah,
Mm.
that's really the theme level. I think it's really important to, you mentioned working with design systems to really maintain these sort of layers where the theme is really global, right? It kind of cascades into everything, and can really set the look and feel. But then there's
Hmm.
component level things, like we said, your buttons are rounded and have this all caps monospace font, right? That looks very different than if I just open up your base project here, um,
Hmm.
than a button like this, right? And that
Right.
really changes the look and feel of the interface.
Yep.
So we're working on ways right now. That process to really customize is fairly manual. It's less about, oh, I need to rebuild this for a different platform. It's more of the mindset of, I'm building components and I'm actually coding them at the same time, right? So it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it's like wasted work. But we are working on ways to bring in AI into the component level, be able to vibe code individual components, or,
Mm.
recreate them even from screenshots, or bringing in some of the data from the MCP server to help steer it along. So that's coming. We basically want that process to be, more faster than ever, but at the same time, the thing to about Subframe is that manual control, that's there from the get-go, and that's by design, because this is a place where you can design and make every decision the same way you would in Figma.
Hmm. This is cool. Wow. And you can edit it right there in the editor too. That's really nice. This is super cool. I think the thing people are probably wondering at this stage, it's like, Okay, I kind of get it. Like I see that you've like pre-built this page and you rebuilt the, B150 feed page. And what's cool is like when you rebuilt it, there's components that are attached to it. But what would it be like if we needed to create something from scratch? Because I think that's like the gap that a lot of people when they come into your tool, they'd feel a bit intimidated and they need to start from scratch. So like should we like try to build something together and see if like we can add on to B150 here, like a new page or something?
Yeah, let's do it. So one thing to keep in mind is again, our subframe is really built around a visual editor where everything is still drag and drop. We can move this over here, right? Auto
Mm.
layout is built in. It's really based on how the web works. So all of that is already predefined,
Hmm.
and but then there's the power of AI, which I think is really great because the more you embed it into a tool that actually augments your direct manipulation, right? Your control and not just replaces it. That's where it can be used for really anywhere in the process, right? Like I'll just duplicate this page so we keep the original one. But AI might be a really good starting point where you could drop an image and it will actually retheme it as well if you're starting from scratch. So it's obviously not going to be as good as when you're doing it yourself, but I don't know, maybe like a settings page like this, right? So I can drop this in and I'll probably just do this part here, and you could really just drop in something existing. This doesn't have to be an existing product. So
Hmm.
the cool thing is, um, I'm just going to say recreate this settings page, right?
Mm.
And the cool thing is that by design, and why all of that work on the theme and components is important, is that everything that the AI in Subframe does uses those components, right?
Mm.
So it's less about, oh, I'm going to drop an image and every single time it's going to try to make it pixel perfect, which means it's going to be breaking your own system just to get one thing right. It's going to be actually using everything, recreating it with the system you've made. So it's actually pretty
Yeah.
cool to be able to go in, and you might like, I don't know, I use like Mobbin or something, right? For
Hmm.
inspiration. Um, well, it looks like I'm not.
I got you though. Yeah.
Well, we can cut. Okay, never mind. I
It's
don't
all
have
good.
access to that email.
Well, yeah.
Okay, let's reset. Okay, so you could drop an image from, inspiration that you have somewhere else, and it's gonna
Mm.
recreate the structure, right? And but actually use your components, and I think that's where it gets really, a lot more exciting for, sort of like you've trained this system. It actually learns. The more pages we add to Subframe, the more it
Yeah.
learns your existing patterns, and the better it gets, and you kind of can drop anything you want into it, and it's going to take that version and try to make it yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting things, like, my workflow when I was building B150, was that, I designed this initial page here actually, in Figma, and then what I did was when I started the project in Cursor, I instructed it that I wanted to take this page and componentize things from it and turn it into a design system and component library, and then I instructed it to build that on top of Radix. And then I had it build a page, like an actual like page on our site, which most users can't see, but I can see as the super admin. And it's literally our coded design system based on top of Radix's primitives.
Yep.
And now every time I build a new page, I just reference that component library page. So what you're effectively doing is essentially doing that, but earlier in the process, like in the actual design phase, I had to do so much to get actually that design system to really work properly. But what you're saying is like, no, actually, like let's design it correctly from the get go, and you'll be able to have a fully compatible component library that every time you create something new, it will reference that and be able to help create new things efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. And you can really think of it as like giving it more ingredients, so then like kind of teaching it the recipe. So you could see that, by default, because it's learned that actually these cards, it recognizes this as a card, but most of the
Yep.
cards that it knows use a white background. It
Yep.
added a white background. And this is just, image models are going to get better. There's a lot we could be doing for actually like
Sure.
extracting that. But the moment I get rid of this background, and sort of, these are easy fixes that now you don't
Yep.
actually have to prompt your way into. It will learn over time that, oh, this is actually what your cards look like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're using more of these primary buttons everywhere that are not small but big or
Mm-hmm.
medium. And that's really how, I think is a good way to think about the system is you are training it over time. It does get better over time, but that does mean there's some things initially, especially this is also just an image model thing. They're just, they're not amazing. So you expect it
Yep.
to be, hey, this just saved us probably like 15 minutes of work just getting the structure down. And now I can say things like, oh, it used toggle group. See, so it did pick up that we have on this feed page, right, that we
Yep.
use
Yeah.
toggle instead of tabs. So it did learn
Yep.
that, but that wasn't quite right in this case because you do use tabs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I can do is I could just ask it also in line. So I could say, replace the toggle group with tabs. And I
Mm.
could just ask AI when I right click on anything to make these
That's
kind of
brilliant.
one shot inline edits, right?
Amazing, amazing. And then, you could just, obviously the styling's a little off now, but like you can just quickly style it and then it will save across all components everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, wow, wow. That's very, very interesting. So walk me through like, what would it be like to build something net new? Obviously, this was like kind of a quick little addition, and we showed, kind of the workflow of like taking a screenshot and then, excuse me, applying it. But like, what if we like really needed to build like a full on new page from scratch? What would that be like?
Yeah. So, and another good thing to think about, again, with this like giving context and learning is when you do have Ask AI open, and I'm going to duplicate this again, um, we can reference existing pages. So
Okay.
that serves as context, and that's a good way to maybe, we can probably just delete a lot of the content in here
Hmm.
and get sort of a blank layout, right? And then now, if we feed this into the context, it's going to reuse at least most of this
Mm.
and know some of that structure. And maybe I can also feed it that original page too to say, well, this is what it looks
Yeah.
like blank. This is what it looks like with a bunch of stuff. Now we're working on something new.
Okay.
So let's design a page. Why don't you maybe
Yeah, so
send?
I had an idea actually. So, we're going to be building kind of like a product hunt like tool inside of our platform. So, why don't we create the page where a company might display their information, like a PDP style page of a company?
Okay, so let's just say we're building a feature for B150 that serves as a product like experience for new product launches. Design a detail page for a product. And yeah, this is where, prompting is an art and you can really go wide and you could even tell it like design, we'll do maybe four different, versions of what this page could look like, whether, and then this is where you might either, drop in things that could have been more specific asks or are just these little teases like whether, um, like where should comments go, what the, you know product detail should look like, etc. So this is going to be our base prompt. I'm also going to mention, because again, context is so important, systems and all these things, we're basically trying to take our brain, right, and give it to this machine. And we forget how much we hold when we make even small decisions.
Yeah.
So we've added this kind of system prompt you could add here as well. I
Mm.
just took your website and
Cool.
pasted, right, a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, it's
You
like my brain you've dumped into here.
Yep. And we can expand this everything from, use cases to entire design guidelines. So a lot of those people who are
Hmm.
bringing in their design systems, you have all that documentation about, oh, how are cards used, right? And like,
Right.
what are the default page layouts, and everything from copy, voice, and tone. We can embed all of that as essentially a system prompt for your own AI, so that it gets even better at knowing those decisions.
Wow, this is very cool. Yeah, I mean, I think while it's building, one of the things I'm kind of seeing here, it's like I would almost like start in Figma to like kind of create some just, general proof of concept, just like ideas, so because it just like allows me to flow and create and like have full control over the designs, but I wouldn't go beyond like one page. Like I would build like one page there, and then I would literally bring it into this tool, set up the design system, and then start like creating the entire front end here, not in cursor actually. And then once I have the front end kind of like really solid, I would then move this over to cursor to be able to help build out the back end and like do the rest of this. Because like I find myself today, like whenever I need to create a new page, I'll just go back to Figma. I'll kind of somewhat design the new page. But if it's like an easy page like settings, like we did before, like
Yeah.
I'm not going into Figma at all. Why would I go there? It's like settings page is pretty straightforward. I actually this time went to Mobbin like you did. I screenshotted a cool settings page. I dropped it in and said use our design system, and then it created the page that you saw that we have up there today. So, like, why do I need to waste my time in Figma when I could just go directly to code? You know?
Yep. No, that's
Oh.
a great way to think about stuff. So again, we asked for a few variations. One dropped off, but
Okay.
again, it went wide. So
Yep.
you can ask it to make just small tweaks. You could ask it to make big tweaks.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
but I guess
It
we
even created two pages. It looks like there's one that is okay. Well, oh no, sorry. It ended up creating a page that was more focused on like the marketplace. I would say less
yes,
like individual product, but there's one featured product there, and then like two other ones, which is fine. I guess it either we didn't instruct it well, or or it just got confused, which is going to happen. But either way, like it created a page that looks like our design system, and I think with a few tweaks, like this is like ready to ship.
yeah. So this is really right. How kind of easy it was to just move something over here, make sure that it um, that we kind of fit it responsively. But the cool part is, and we did get to that dropped off. And I was running into a little bit of issues with your project, but the cool part is though is that you might find an idea that you really like here, and you're like,
Mm,
oh, trending topics. Like, I actually like these badges instead of
yeah.
these categories here. You could just drag that in.
Oh, that's dope. That's
Right.
dope.
Like,
Yeah.
everything is still on the design layer. You can really just, explore and just be like, right, let's use tabs instead of the pills here. And this is
Yeah.
kind of how you jam. Yeah.
Wow, that was so fast. That was insane. Uh, all right, so like you've got this page now. Like, how do we get this into like a coding environment? Obviously feels real here, but like feels like Figma, and I'm like I'm in a 2D world and I don't understand things. How do I get to a place where we're truly on the internet?
Yeah. So everything here that we've done has the code generated on the fly. So we don't use LLMs to actually generate the front end code. This is
Mm,
all programmatic, and this is why it's actually usable code, because we focus on
mm,
the things that people want, which is, the front end, basically having a design layout that uses the right components, that has right all those padding, everything that you've tweaked right,
mm.
and doesn't have any business logic at this
Yeah.
level. We're still in design phase. There's still a handoff process. It's just you're handing off the same material. And of course,
Yeah.
we're going to get into a world where you could do more in Subframe. You could make things more interactive.
Yep.
We have a prototyping beta that's doing that right now that I encourage people to kind of sign up for. We're
Hmm.
looking for more feedback. But yeah, right now you're going to be handing off to your friendly developer or your friendly AI code agent, right?
Yeah.
And Cursor, obviously that's usually where you probably have something set up already,
Yep.
and is a great place to, if you're working Cursor, you're probably working with the code more directly anyway. So what
Yeah.
we do for these tools is we wrap the code in some basic prompting, and there's like an installation sync step,
Hmm.
and you give it that code, and it does the right thing because it already knows
Mm.
exactly what it's doing, right? And it just now has to connect to the business logic. But for the
Cool.
purposes of here, let's go ahead and export to Bolt real quick,
Hmm.
because that is where you might already be working on your app. So we made this super easy. We can just open Bolt, and we already have the template for you running here. So that's going to go ahead and just open up. And then we're going to go back here, generate this installation prompt. And this is going to basically sync your project to Subframe. And it's going to start to copy all those components that we've made already directly into your Bolt project. So you don't have to do that here. Um, and then we're going to go ahead and now, components get synced. So we'll see that in a minute, where you could just make a tweak to a button and it's just going to boom in one command, update it everywhere. But pages, because we know we're going to be refactoring them, adding business logic, state, all that stuff, that's why we rely on more of a copy and paste workflow there. And so we'll start with the whole page, right? Usually, if you're just starting new, you want to give it everything. Maybe if you were starting from an existing page, we'll actually show that too. You might just select just a snippet of code, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everything is kind of like an inspect mode. And that works really well for iterating on top of existing stuff.
Okay,
So
cool. So
let's
yeah,
go
like if
ahead.
you built your Bolt project and then you're like, hey, I want to change the styling of the tabs, then like here's what it should look like, and then you just feed that in and it will help you change that.
Yep. So I'm just going to run this. And you can see it's literally taking that code, so it knows exactly what
Mm.
to do. And we've already imported those components, and they're
Hmm.
syncing here again. So no one ever has to write code for a button anymore. Like you just
Right.
edit it just
Right.
like you would in Figma, and then it just gets updated everywhere. And then the rest of the page, that's where real engineering work happens. That's where you're going
Yeah.
to be factoring this. But it's way better to start with code than a picture or a mock-up, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, a lot of that front end business logic that you might need to add, like, I don't know, in our case, maybe like when you press submit your launch, maybe like a modal pops up or something like that, right?
Yep.
Or even connecting this to your database, right? Like all that back end work that would need to be done, both or probably a tool more like Cursor would be able to help you kind of handle the rest of the way.
Exactly. So I'm going to make just a quick change here, maybe just for the sake of it, we'll get rid of the background for these borders. We'll make them
Mm-hmm.
darker here, something like this, just for this variant. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to just copy the sync command.
Mm.
And let's see, we'll have two things. One is,
Oh wow! Here we go. Get in
looks
there.
like we got our page, and looks like it didn't get the fonts in. Okay, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's probably a little, we just have to set up those headers. Again, we're moving to a code tool. We didn't do any setup. We literally just did this right 3 seconds ago.
Yep.
But let's pay attention to maybe just the badges. I'm just going to run this command, and that should sync the latest. Now, hopefully I don't run out of tokens. And boom, right. All our badges are updated everywhere just because I
Yeah.
did in Subframe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this is where you would keep going and be able to prompt your way into a real app, but always be able to either update your components from that design side, or the feature I do really like in some of these tools is you might just select one thing.
Mm.
Like you might just go and I don't know, we'll make this into individual cards of people with their job title. So we'll make a little design edit for one of these cards.
Mm.
And then we're just going to copy and paste this. And we'll go ahead, just grab this code. And then in Bolt, you can also just select this. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. I select this right here and then say update the design to match this. Boom.
Mm.
And again, it's going to do the exact thing. And this is
I love
assuming that
that.
if we added some business logic here already, this is where LLMs are really good at being able to parse out, just the design changes, make those updates from kind of the subframe as a source and preserve,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the powerful things about a tool like Bolt or Lovable. Like, they allow you to do this, right? And actually visually point to things and click on them. I think like that's where one of the big, shortcomings at the moment of something like a cursor or windsurf, although I'm not sure, maybe they've added some of those features that I just am not aware of just yet. But I like that workflow. I think one of the big challenges that you know, eventually you guys will probably need to figure out. It's like, okay, well now we've provided all the front end logic, and now I've taken my project and moved it into a bolt or a lovable or a cursor or whatever, and now I'm making changes and actively, my system is probably just going to evolve over time. And I think it's that coming full circle, like the loop, right? It's like I've made a change here and I need it to come back and reflect in my actual subframe project. Have you guys thought at all about like closing the loop there?
yeah, a little bit. And, I do think that's where that concept of sort of bringing in your components comes in. You might have some stuff that you can't do in subframe right now, maybe like a data grid table is a good one, right? Where there's all this logic, you just can't just design that without the full functionality. So being able to put that back in, yeah, those are things we're working on. But at the end of the day, I do think there's still a flow that does happen. Like we probably can't build the best generalized AI coding agent that beats Cursor and Windsurf right now, right? Like we're not expected to do that. We want to be the best design tool, but work in a medium that interacts well with other AI tools, with other manual engineering work, and basically with any piece of software that you're working on. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely a stepping stone to something new and different. I mean, already, I think in today's, episode, if you will, I've learned so much, and I feel like I'm rethinking the way I approach design. I think the workflows of designers is going to substantially change, and this feels like a really good step forward in the right direction. And especially as more designers need to become design engineers, at least it's a familiar interface, and one that's a little bit easier to kind of wrap our brains around. I think so many people are intimidated when they jump into Cursor or even Lovable or any of these other tools. they're just like, whoa, code, like, like, I don't know if I want to be in here. But, I think your tools makes it a little bit more palpable. So anyways, I'm excited. Filip, how can people learn more about you guys and follow along in your journey?
Yeah. Subframe.com. We're on LinkedIn and Twitter. You could go ahead and find us there, posting updates and some new, podcasts like this, recordings, workshops. We do a bunch of community workshops that are pretty fun. And but we have a free plan. Go ahead and check us out. And keep building, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. This has been awesome. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks. This is really great. And excited where you take your product hunt page next.
Yeah, look for more updates on that soon. We've got some awesome interns that have volunteered their time to help build that out. And actually, we've been testing out new workflows on how to actually apply this. So future episode to come on that. And who knows, maybe we'll be starting to use Subframe to help us do it.
Awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, Filip. Have a great day.
You too. See you.
Yeah, built in public, no mask, no frontin', turn nothing to something. Now everybody want in.